Is the fat acceptance slash body positivity movement just the female equivalent of Napoleon Complex commercialized to a grand level? So I've been thinking about this. What is the reason some of these have been so popular? There's people, of course, I see there are actual people who are fat themselves, and they actually have some issues. I am a recovering fat person, have been up to the highest weight I had was 350 pounds. Right now, I've been fluctuating down between 250 and like 230 for the last couple of years as I work through it. Right now, I'm doing a keto cycle. So I've had the experience with that, but I never was in a situation when I was fat thinking like you should just accept me from being fat. I never actually felt positive about myself being in that place because it felt bad. I knew the negative effects it had on my body. I didn't know them to the point enough to do something about it, but I never thought that I was healthy. I was the kind of person who would look at other people and like, look, that person is larger. They might seem happier. This whole jolly fat man type of trope. But I'm like, I know how I feel. I would probably feel so much worse when I looked like that. Then I looked at myself and how I felt about myself when I was younger and fitter and less heavy. And then as I got more and more heavy, there was other issues in my life, the depression, the feelings, knowing about the actual medical effects, the feeling of gravity, the lack of energy, just all these things. You're getting a matatu's coming up and you're wondering, oh, the seat's open in the back, but I don't want to like squeeze through and get to the back seats back there. There's all these things that go into your mind. Can I sit in that seat without it breaking? There's extra things. The extra weight adds extra things. There's extra you to worry about and think about. And that is not a positive place to be at. Don't accept that kind of situation. It is unhealthy. In general, 99% of the time, you putting on that weight is unhealthy. Even if you are fitter than certain people, in general, in the long term, we're talking about life. We're not talking about just tomorrow. We're talking about entire life. It is unhealthy. But why is it that the fat acceptance movement has gotten such traction? Especially in the sense of not just it being a personal thing where it's just for you yourself, you just feel a certain way, but there's something with the fat acceptance body positivity that is active. It's external. It's about getting other people to have changed their point of view and perception of how you physically are. If it's just get to know yourself, because the surprising thing about this, the more you value yourself, the more I valued myself, was like, I value myself enough to be healthier than I am. So that got me like, I'm valuing my life enough that I no longer have to be hiding in this slow, tasty suicide. I don't have to be in this imprisonment. I have to free my body and value it to a higher level and say, I'm going to hold it myself to a higher standard. I deserve to be fitter. I can be fitter. It's worthwhile. I'm worth actually becoming fitter. I'm worth living a longer, more productive, healthy life. Not just for myself, but the people around me. I see them valuing it. There's just so many positives for that. So with this situation, that I get. Trying to understand it, and I think if you encourage that personal feeling, you will find people starting to improve their actual weight. But this one is different. This one says, I am just as attractive as somebody. Fat is beautiful. It's not. To most people, it's not. There's some people who have fetishes, but there's just some genetic aspects about it that are literally just not attractive. It's just not something people look at and found attractive. Don't go back to that whole thing. Oh, back in the past, these people. First of all, those actual examples that you're seeing, in some cases, that is such a small percentage of the population, and it's normally the 1%, the aristocrats that you're saying, these are the people. But the general public was not that way. And in some other cases, some of those artists were actually not allowed to use female bodies, female models. So in some cases, when you see these heavier framed females in these old kinds of art, they were using a male model and just bolting on breasts onto the model, or just taking the penis off, trying to feminize it a bit. That actually happened in some of this. When you look back at the fertility goddesses, that is way, way back in the past, and that's more about the hip to waist ratio, and not just general obesity, because people just did not have an excess of calories to actually have the obese people back in that time. But again, coming back to the thing, why is it about attraction? Why does it come about the perception of society? You should find me attractive. You should find me beautiful. I should just be on the runway just as much as anybody else. And speaking of the runway, was there a bulimia acceptance? Was there a movement to say, like, we need to just embrace these people who are just thin in an unhealthy way, who are underweight from just your basic bodily functions. Your body is struggling itself. You have on the side of the male people who have the bodybuilders, and they get down to just your average bodybuilder when they're on stage, supposed really top bodybuilders will get down to single digit actual body fat percentage. But off season, they will normally be in like the 20% range, 20-25% range, because it's just not healthy to be that thin. So when you find those stick models, the coat hanger type of models, they used to say, yeah, this was not good. But then part of the whole actual depiction on the runway is to get as close to a coat hanger because that is just the way the clothes actually lay on a body and things like that. And holding clothes is you're displaying the clothes more than the body. So there's all these things that go into it. But anyway, coming back to the thing, why is there a drive to actually make this attractive? And I'm saying the Napoleon Complex thing commercialized to a grand level because the Napoleon Complex thing is the thing with men in general. Females in general find men to be more attractive when they're tall. There's something like 90%, over 90% of women are in relationships with men that are taller than them. Now, with the height, this one is entirely genetic. When it comes to obesity, I think 5% of the people who are actually obese would have just something that's completely genetic. They literally, even if they were mentally healthy in any kind of way, just they take in 500 calories versus somebody who doesn't have like a thyroid issue, for example. That person will just not be able to convert that energy as well as that person without the issue. There's maybe 5% of people who have these various issues. I think a majority of them is other issues leading to mental issues, mostly from adverse childhoods and things like that, and other unresolved issues that lead them to overeat, to be more sedentary, not be as active, just have other issues in them. So this is something by choice. When it comes to height, in general, that is something that is selected. You can't really adjust that. You grow to a certain level. You're not going to all of a sudden be in your 30s and be like, I'm going to have a growth spurt and just get a lot taller. But you can be obese your entire life and then figure out something out and then get to your 30s and be like, I'm actually going to get in better shape. Get to 16 and be obese the whole time. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to actually get in better shape and be better and be more physically active and just be healthier. So that's something you can actually change. But with the Napoleon Complex, they tie in that thing where they say, short men have certain behavior, certain demanding, aggressive behavior that seems to be something overcompensating for their actual height. But they can't demand society to actually treat a short man to be as attractive as a tall man. What they do in some cases is they find some of them achieving more in monetary sense and resource provision because that is something that is also valued by the opposite sex. It's found to be attractive, it's found to be worthwhile. But still, if they were doing that same thing versus somebody who's doing that at 5'2" versus somebody who's doing that at 6'2", the 6'2" person would just be looked at better in general by most females. And this is just the way the world is. But the man can't demand this. Now, with the fat acceptance and the body positivity movement, that one females can demand more from society in certain appreciation. Now, I don't know how much people actually truly do it, how much of it is lip service versus how much of it is actually changing the way people view something that's attractive. Because as I said, I think some of this is just genetic. It's not just a social construct. It's just a simple thing. You look at somebody and somebody knows. Just think about if you knock your hand or something and then it swells up. There is something off-putting about that swelling look because there is something in our genes that says there's something wrong there in my own body. I have to address this. And when you swell up from being obese, from having the inflammation, it shows that there is a negative thing. People inherently know that this means this person is going to live for a shorter time. If you love yourself, if you love someone else, you want to bring new life into this world. Wouldn't you want to spend as much time with this person as possible? Now, there's many other things in society as well that I can say can be put into this, where there's not acceptance for these things that we know have negative effects. There's some things we agree and say, okay, I get this person does this, but the positives outweigh this. But we never consider this one thing and this detraction to be an actual positive. It's something that we deal with. It's something that's like, despite this, we like this. Fat acceptance, body positivity is trying to switch something that is in that despite area into an actual positive. Like I should look for people to be fat. I should encourage my children to be fat. I should be positive with a fat person. If somebody I'm with gets fatter, I shouldn't want to say anything to them. And I think that's wrong and dangerous. So that's it for now. It's part of my shorty series where I expand on short thoughts and then I engage you in a conversation. Thank you for taking your time to come listen to this. Should be links below to a merchandise store. I think that you've got the merch on the screen right now for the 7 Deadly Sins series that I have. I have the 7 different deadly sins. Gluttony is one of them. And for me, just with the 7 deadly sins, most of the sins just come to just excess. Most of the sins just come down to just having too much of something. There's nothing wrong with eating food. Having excessive food is wrong. Nothing wrong with having sex. Having excessive sex can be damaging. Nothing wrong with having money. Wanting excessive wealth could be terrible with the greed. This is the greed, having the excess, that comes down to it. Greed and gluttony, I think, are the key ones on this whole 7 deadly sins thing. Okay, so that's it for now. Like, share, and subscribe. Links below to the merchandise store as I mentioned. Till next time, thanks for taking the time. Goodbye.
Hapa hiyo ikitokea hiyo. Wacha